Hey there folks, welcome back to another video from GDI. Today I'm bringing you one in the SU-100, which is a Tier 6 Russian tank destroyer. Comes right before the SU-100M1 and the SU-152. Overall, I think it's okay. It's not great. It's not bad. It's, a little above average. But I'll tell you why as we get into it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the armor on this one because it's not good at all. And there's a reason why I'm going to bring this up first, because it really, the armor defines the playstyle of this tank, more so than the guns do, or the mobility for that matter. So, without even looking at the armor values on the tank, you can already see that, there's no armor on this thing. The lower plate, although small, is very weak. The thickest armor on the tank is right here at the lip and outside of the gun mantlet. The rest of the tank, though, that's just paper. And we don't even know what the values are yet. So now I'm going to go ahead and do us all a favor, and we're going to look at the values. So 120 millimeters, that's this front lip right here. 100 millimeters is right out here, outside the gun mantlet. The next highest is 75 millimeters. So stripping away the highest armor on the tank, we have nothing. We have 75 millimeters at the front. There are plenty of tanks that can penetrate 75 millimeters at that angle. And you can't really do a whole lot of side scraping in this tank because, well, for starters, your side armor is not very strong, and your front armor, or rather, you don't have a turret. So in order to angle this at such an angle that you would start generating bounces from higher caliber guns, you're going to need to do two things: expose your side and keep your gun from shooting at them, which is two things you really don't want to do. And that kind of makes this tank into a sniper more than anything else. It's a support tank. It's not like you can lead assaults in this thing, not like the T-95, for example. You are in the rear with the gear. So here we have an EZ-8 firing the 76 millimeter M1A2 with the stock rounds. They have 128 millimeters of penetration. And one of the things I like about the EZ-8, and some people argue with me about this, and I'm sure there are better tanks in the game, and I know that. I won't argue that point. But one of the things I like about the EZ-8 is that it's such a good flanker. But, we can see here that I don't have to flank the SU-100 to shoot at him and penetrate him. And even if you try to angle your armor, look at the kind of angles, as I was saying before, look at the kind of angles you need to start making to start generating bounces. And now look at what's going on here. We have the whole side of the tank exposed in order to get such a good angle. But if I'm anywhere to, I think this is about where the gun points to. And I would have no problem just penetrating right through the front of this. But if an SU-100's staring at me with this, 122 millimeter gun, then I'm not going to just sit there in front of it. I'm going to try and get behind it. And at that rate, I'm not going to have any problems penetrating at all. But the point I'm trying to make here is not you can get flanked, obviously. This is a turretless tank destroyer. The Tractiverse isn't that great. But the point I'm making is that you don't want to be so close where you are brawling. And if you try that in this tank, you will get annihilated. This is the T-28 using the 57 millimeter ZIS, which is the same gun that you get on the T-34 and the A-44. But you will see it as early as Tier 4 tanks. So even if you're top tier, the point I'm trying to make here is that right through this hatch right here, it's going to go straight through. Even angling, obviously the gun's not going to be able to point at the T-28 at this angle. And the T-28 still has a pretty good chance of penetrating right in this area. You're shooting directly at a T-28. The best you can do is hopefully be up a slope, but a little bit, but this thing doesn't have great gun depression. Or gun depression where I would recommend, trying to get up at angles like this rather. Even that hatch is still vulnerable. You have your weak spots up here. Look at this hatch. If all else fails and you got a tank that can't penetrate your front armor for whatever reason, it's like this, and maybe they don't know about this, the hatch. That's always the go-to spot for a weak spot, except for maybe on some, there's a couple tier 10 tanks where the hatches are near impenetrable. But, you know, so, I mean, that's my point. I think I made it. So let's get into the guns that go along with this support playstyle. So, we can see here that we have a choice of 4 guns to choose from. So these are the 4 that you have to choose from all lined up. You know, the stock gun obviously is going to be garbage, so let's get this out of here. It's embarrassing by any standards. The 2 top guns have stock penetration that are higher than its premium penetration. It's got embarrassing accuracy and embarrassing, oh, it's an alright aim time, I guess. It's actually above average, I guess I would call it. It's still not amazing. The best thing it's got is the rate of fire, but this isn't a gun that you're going to want to keep. Let's get that out of here. The next 3 guns that you got to choose from, you're basically choosing between the higher penetration and accuracy. The gun that I recommend is this 122mm D2F5S. So these other guns, this one has 144mm penetration with the stock rounds and 194 with the premium. You know, it's still not great, but for a tier 6 tank, it's not horrible. But the penetration on these 2 is where you definitely want to be at. These penetration values are going to be what puts you through the matches where you end up in tier 8 matches. So it's why I don't recommend this, but this is a good sniper gun, 0.34 accuracy, and obviously that'll get lower as you get Brothers in Arms and vents and whatnot. But it's not what I recommend, so let's get rid of that. The way I did it is I grinded using this gun. And there you can see the guns lined up. All you got to do is grind through this gun, which is this one right here. It's got the same penetration, nearly, slightly better accuracy, better aim time, higher rate of fire. What you're lacking, though, is the alpha damage. And you do have a little bit higher penetration with the premium rounds. But what I found with this tank is that you are in a low tier match still, or a low tier tank still, and you get into low tier matches. So more times than not, it suffers the same problems as the T-34 did. The T-34 had issues where you'd shoot one time at a tank and do a minimum amount of damage, and then they'd duck into cover, they'd get destroyed by another tank, so on and so forth. So I found that this lower alpha gun is not really what you so much want in this tank. The higher alpha gun with a lower rate of fire, I found more times than not, is what I'm looking for. You do have about 100 hit points more DPM using the 100mm D10S over the 122mm. But as I said, if the gun's not firing, then that extra DPM doesn't matter. So the way I look at it personally is if I only get to fire my gun once in, say, I don't know, 20 seconds, 25 seconds, even 30 seconds sometimes, then I want that one shot to count. And that's how it is sometimes, especially being a tank destroyer, where you're going to be sniping, you're going to be at longer ranges. There's going to be lots of places for the enemy to hide the further away you are. Every little crevice gets larger and larger as they get further and further away, so they can get behind that, and it's harder for you to keep that rate of fire up while you're at distance. So that's, as I said, the 122mm is the way to go. I don't want to spend too much time on this because, as I said, if you're getting shot at it in this thing, then you're doing it wrong. But I will point out some of the weak spots. Obviously, as I've previously mentioned, this hatch right here is a weak spot, which is right where the gunner's at. So if they're hitting this, you might get your gunner knocked out. Obviously, the hatch is always a weak spot on most tanks. Drivers right here below the gunner, and then you have your ammo rack right here. Don't get hit is basically the takeaway in this thing. The one last thing I will say before we start getting into matches, I'm not going to go too far into the details about this tank because the tank doesn't matter. It's the guns that matter. But the one thing that does matter, because I've said you want to sit at range and whatnot, is it does have a decent camo rating. You put camo nets on the tank, you put camo on your crew members, and you put the camouflage skin on the tank. And You know, you just sit in some bushes, sit at range, let other people spot for you. As I said, if you're taking fire, you're doing it wrong, and you don't want to take fire in this thing. So the further away that you can sit, the better off you are. But that being said, let's start to see some matches in this bad boy. So here we are on Pearl River, one of my least favorite maps. We're in a tier 6 match, so pretty favorable. It seems there's an even number of tier 5s, 6s, and 4s. So it looks like we may do okay. As you notice, I do run camo nets, as I recommended that I think that you should run. I'm also running the rations, is that what it's called? Combat rations? Let's find out. Yep, combat rations. Because we've seen the accuracy of the gun, it's .43 at 100%. And at this point I don't have brothers in arms on this. I do have vents on the tank. But it's always the lower you can get that, or the higher you can get the crew efficiency rather, the better off you're going to be. And the better your accuracy is going to be. So given that this tank is supposed to be a sniper tank, and I'm using a gun that has such low accuracy, I'm running extra combat ration. Give myself that extra 10% along with the vents, and eventually when I get brothers in arms I'll have that on there as well. And you notice I swapped that out for fire extinguisher. And on this tank, the weak spot for the engine is in the rear. If you're getting shot at in the rear, then you're already dead anyway. So if you get set on fire from that, you might as well just let it burn. So yeah, I didn't see a dire need to keep a fire extinguisher on this thing. So let's see. Nothing's really happening yet. Kind of boring. I mean, well, stuff's happening, obviously. We got the guys on our left flank that are getting ready to suicide. Here we go. Excelsior. First shot's a miss. This tank has pretty good front armor, weak sides. Doesn't matter, I've got enough to go through his front. And a powerful hit. Again, that's why I like this gun. It does have a 10 or so second reload, which kind of sucks, like times like that. But that alpha punch, I mean, that Excelsior is dead within, one hit after I hit him. So having that huge punch, I got all that alpha damage out before he died. So now they're down 2 tanks, the Excelsior and the M6, or sorry, the T1 Heavy. Thought it was an M6. We've spotted a bunch of their tanks, so we know there's a lot here. We don't know exactly what they are yet, because they're all bunched up and I can't tell. We can see a KV-1 grill and a T-40. The grill's clearly, I don't know what he's doing. I say clearly. What the fuck is he doing? Oh, that's what he's doing. He's dying. Dying is what he was doing. That makes sense. And now in front of me, now there's just a huge graveyard. So you see I put right for his weak spot. Not that I need to. He doesn't have the armor to bounce the caliber of shell, the 175mm penetration that I've got going against that weak armor. I think it was 75, that's what I said. Yeah, so I make short work of him. He does fire at me, but he misses because he wasn't fully aimed in, obviously. And even at this range, 160 meters. Gotta aim in a little bit more than that. So we're making short work of that entire team in the north. And now I'm noticing what's left. I can barely see what's on the map in front of me. But I do notice that their Churchill 1, the SU-100, and the Hellcat are all on the left side. So what that leaves me is the KV-1 has to be on this side, which just hit me, and the M8A1. So I took 2 hits, one from the M8A1 and one from the KV-1S. As I said, this thing has paper armor pretty much. And I did expect to do a little bit of damage, but I wasn't expecting the KV-1S to be right there. I thought he was going to be backing up. But I knew that I would be able to survive either way, which is why I did it. So now I'm going to hang back. I got what I needed. Took the hits I needed to get to do it. KV-1S is the last tank over here. The other 3 tanks on their team are all on the left side. So at this point, I'm wondering what the hell is everybody else on this flank doing? There's just a KB-1S over here, and this Jumbo Sherman has enough health that he can take one hit from that guy at least. So I'm waiting for him to do it. He's about to. And, there he goes. Now he's reloading. I see it, so I'm trying to rush around and get a shot in. I didn't get a lot of damage, but I did get a kill, so we're up to 5 kills. And this thing does move pretty fast. You can see me racing by the Jumbo. Of course, Jumbo, I wouldn't consider that a fast tank. But the point is, this thing gets up and move. It has pretty good mobility. Not so much a flanker. It doesn't traverse very well. And the paper armor means you really can't spend that time traversing. So I would never recommend you going and trying to play a medium role in this turretless tank destroyer. And it doesn't even move that fast for you want to do that. So here I'm expecting that the match is over, and it is. Those two tier 6 tank destroyers, they're not doing anything at this point. And, you know, don't rely on XVM as far as, you know, I hate to say, what I will say is that XVM has its purposes. So looking here, you know, I don't claim to be the best player, but a 323 and an 829 WN7 player, I'm not really expecting much trouble out of these guys for the rest of the match. So I let it aim in, and it sails over his head. I can't believe that just happened. And I gotta rip it. Which never ends up happening. Hellcat nails me. Unfortunate, but that's game. We did okay. Okay, so for a little quick post-game analysis, that was 1575 experience and 54,000 credits for a victory. My first class mastery bet. Sort by damage. Wrong way. And, yep, top damage. And that's really why you want that 122mm gun, especially for these low tier matches. You know, you saw all those tanks in front of me just dying before I could get more than one shot off. And even if I had a more rapid firing weapon, we would still be facing that kind of problem. There were too many tanks around, too many tanks shooting. There was another SU-100 with me shooting. He didn't do as much damage, but he was there. So that's something you want to keep in mind, is that a lot of the times in these low tier matches, these tanks are just going to die before you have a chance to do anything to inflict more damage. Alright, so we can see 11 shots fired, 9 hits, 9 penetrations. Every shot that you hit is more than likely going to penetrate in these low tier matches. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I did play that match a little bit closer. That is kind of a match where you have to do that. You're kind of forced into it. Especially in that one, because at the beginning none of my team wanted to go and defend that bridge. But you know, that's kind of a good spot for you to be in this kind of tank destroyers, because they're gonna, you know, try to pop around that corner one at a time, and they're not gonna really push that hard through it. So you're pretty much gonna be able to take one shot, and they're gonna pull back, and then you have enough time to reload and regroup yourself, and then take another shot by the time they pull up again. Which is the reason why I was okay with doing that. Let's get into the next match. So here we are, we're in a tier 8 match. We are on South Coast. You know, they don't have great tier 8 tanks, but still, being in this paper tank on this map, on any map, being in a paper tank 2 tiers down, it's not really where you want to be. So you have to be a little bit cautious, but you know, if you notice on this map, there's not really a whole lot of good places to sit and snipe, especially when you can pretty much guarantee that your team, you pretty much have to take it as a guarantee that your team isn't going to try and help you. So I've moved up here into a more forward position. I see the Easy 8. I hold my fire because I'm not going to waste a shot on it. I also don't know if I've been spotted because I don't have 6th Sense. And I'm typing here, so I think I was spotted by the Easy 8. Oh, that's why the IS was trying to poke me. But I was in camo. My full camo was up. I was completely stationary. That's why he couldn't see me when he poked around. So now I know he's going to try and poke again, so I want to make sure I'm here for it. Having all this camo on the tank really helps. As I said, you have camo on the paint job, you have camo nets, and you have camo on the crew skills. On this particular crew, I didn't have camo on the crew skills, so it potentially can get much better. And I'm arguing with... I'm missing shots here because I'm arguing with the Rust guy, because I don't like those guys, not even a little bit. So I'm purposely picking a fight with him because he's just saying dumb stuff, and that, I don't know. In any case, I make that IS suffer for poking out. Tier 7 tank. There's no reason why you can't really penetrate that IS anywhere on his tank. One good place to really penetrate the IS, as I found out, is the turret. If I'm thinking about the right tank, the gun mantlet is extremely weak. I think it has like 100 millimeters of spaced armor on the mantlet, and behind it is absolutely zero armor. So if you penetrate that mantlet, it's going right in. But in any case, I'm not going to really take that chance. I'm going to aim for the weaker parts of his tank, like the lower plate. Or at this point, the weaker parts of the tank that I think this was before I realized it, that it was so weak. The turret, rather. So I see the T-69 behind me, and I'm trying to watch that. I don't think he's going to be able to come around, but he does seem to be in cover from the Tiger P. The Indian Panzer's coming up for him, but he might be reloaded by that time, and the SU-100Y went down for him. Knocks him out. I wish I could have seen how much damage that did. There we go, the IS is poking again. Oh, no, it's a different IS. It's alright. IS is like suiciding too. Can be arranged. So I'm poking out a little bit again. I know that I have better camo than they do at view range, so I'm going to try and use that a little bit. I'm fairly certain that I can spot them from here, despite what their camo is. And there he is. Let's make him pay. There goes one. He starts aiming at me. I'm going to back away because this is not a tank you really want to trade shots in with any tank. He fires at me and he misses. Take advantage of that and put another one in. And gotcha, bitch. Took out his engine. So we're up to 1,200 damage with 4 shots, which is, you know, a little below average, I guess you could say. I can't remember, what was it, 390 for each shot is the average on this. And I'm loading up APCR because I'm not trying to play any more matches than I need to. That meaning that I don't want to lose any more matches than I need to. So on these tanks, I'm going to make sure I penetrate them no matter where I shoot them. We are in a tier 8 match, so pretty much everything we shoot at is going to be below our tier, or above our tier, rather. And I can just see the edge of his tank, but I don't think it's worth shooting at, not even with APCR. Fairly certain that... Oh, I do think it's a good shot. I think what I'm shooting at is Commander's Cupola. I can't see the outline for whatever reason. It's not showing in the replay. Yep, there it is. I can see it behind the bush. So it was his Commander's Cupola I was shooting at. I was thinking if I can just get a lucky round to go straight where I'm aiming, then it's a definite 100% guarantee as a bounce. Or, sorry, as a hit, rather. So I'm going to move forward. I'm trying to get a shot. I'm trying to be choosy about it, though, because I know if I go too far forward, he's going to have a clear shot on me, and I won't be able to back away in time. So I am being mindful of the 2 tanks to my left. One of them's a Yak Panzer IV, the other one's a Tiger. Tiger starts coming down, and gotcha, bitch. Suck it. Put it into his track. He starts to turn and to look at me, and it's too late for him. So I am monitoring him. Hi, my name's GDI. I cannot talk. That was probably insensitive. In any case, so now I'm trying to see if he's going to come back around and be a little bit stupid. We're winning now, so I can afford to be a little aggressive. Ooh, there's his commander's hatch. Ooh, thank God that went right into. Don't think I needed the penetration of the round to do that. And the 40-43 finishes him off. The IS finishes off our SU-100Y. We're now 12-6. So one more into this guy. I'd prefer to high roll. That's okay. He puts one nasty round into me. As I said, this is not a tank you want to be trading shots in. So, but now we're 14-6. One tank left, the KV-4. So now it's the name of the game is race up there and try to kill him myself. Of course, I'm not going to get there with some of these faster tanks like the Indian Panzer that actually has a turret. But it looks like we're in luck. 1200 health, and nobody seems to be doing any damage. We see shots flying, but I think that's coming from the AT-15 that was talking trash to me earlier. So I'm trying to take one without aiming. Put one into his side and his track seated, which wasn't surprising. I was just hoping for a lucky roll. And that's game, ladies and gentlemen. So, for a little post-game analysis in that Tier 8 match. It's 1846, not enough to get the ace tanker on the tank. I'd imagine it wouldn't be, not with a gun like that. Especially not while the road to the object 268's going on. But, still not a bad match at all. Not by any means. So let's sort by damage. See how we matched up against these Tier 8s. So right off the bat, we can see that the top tanks in the game were not even Tier 8 tanks. Not tanks that I would expect to do top damage in the match. We have a Tiger on their team, and myself in a Tier 6 SU-100 paper tank on my team. He did do a little bit more damage than I did. He played a little bit carelessly at the end. I think he was just hoping for a kill on the SU-100Y, not realizing that I was there. And I was probably the reason he died. Tracking him, making him back up, not getting the kill on the SU-100Y, still being spotted in time for our 40-43 to take him out after I had his commander's cupola again. Alright, hit him a second time rather. So, I mean, some of the tanks that we did better than were the Jag Panther II, the AT-15, T-29, T-34, and I could go all the way down the list. The point is that this is not a bad tank destroyer if you can stay at range and keep them from shooting at you. We saw that we had an IS, one of their Tier 7 tanks, with a gun that's, I don't even think is that good. It's pretty much the same as that gun as the KV-1S. He took a nasty chunk out of our health pool. So it's not really, as I mentioned, not a tank that you want to be trading shots in. 8 shots fired, 7 hits, 6 penetrations. Not really sure where the one hit that didn't penetrate went. The one at the end, where it went into his tracks, that should count as a penetration, so I'm not really sure what happened there. But still, you know, this goes again back to the gun selection choice thing that I had mentioned before. If you don't have a whole lot of shots to fire in an entire match, that was nearly an 8-minute match. I fired about 1 round a minute. And not all of them, only 6 of them penetrated and did damage. So if you're only going to do that many rounds worth of damage, you got to make them count, which is the reason why I went with a higher alpha damage gun. It's just, I think it's more valuable to have a gun that does more damage than a gun that fires more often. Because as I said, if you can't keep these guns firing, then it defeats the purpose of having the higher DPM. You know, I can't stress that enough. An 8-minute match, about 1 round a minute, 6 penetration, which is less than 1 penetration a minute, which is sad. So that higher alpha comes in very handy. We got 11,000 credit profit, which is after we had to resupply that combat ration, and we had 1846 experience. So overall, not bad. Personally, for me, I think this is a good tank. I'm not keeping it. Actually, I should say not keeping it. I didn't keep it. I sold it for the SU-152. That tank I was so much looking forward to, and I still am. I haven't really played it that much. I haven't had a lot of time. But I was looking forward to it so much more than I was looking forward to keeping this thing. As I mentioned, this tank is subject to the lower tier, shenanigans that go on between, not having large health pools to shoot at, tanks dying fast, tanks suiciding fast. These lower tiers are where people learn how to play. Not to say that people don't get to tier 10 and still don't know how to play, but you're going to have a lot more of that at these lower tiers. So you have to expect, a lot of suicides and whatnot. So it makes these lower tier tanks less fun to play, especially when you're supposed to be a sniper and you're supposed to be hanging back, which is what you're supposed to be doing in this tank. You're supposed to be hanging back, letting other tanks spot, making sure you aren't spotted. But it just doesn't work out that way in this tank. A lot of matches you end up by yourself. Your team dies too fast, or the enemy team dies too fast, and you're too far back. It's a balancing act. You have to figure out how far forward you can actually be, where if tanks start dying near you, that you are safe enough to get back some distance further behind the lines of your friendly tanks. Or if the enemy starts dying fast enough, you have to be far enough forward where you can continue to lay fire down. If you're too far back, it's going to take you too long to get forward on the map, and you're not going to be able to fire. So it's a balancing act, and it's not one that I particularly like playing. It's one of the reasons I like medium tanks, is you're always on the forefront. They're a little bit more frustrating to play, but overall I think they're more fun to play. But as I said, that's the reason why I'm not keeping this tank. I was more looking forward to the SU-152. It gets into higher tier matches. You start to weed out some of the people that don't know how to play, or people are starting to learn how to play, and as they get higher in the tiers. So once you start getting into these tier 7 matches, you get less of the people that don't know how to play, because they're learning at that point. They may not be professional players, or some of these people go and play in tournaments and whatnot, but they're getting better at the game, and it's more tolerable. That and some of the gun selections on the SU-152 are amazing, and I can't wait to get those. But that's coming in the future. It's gonna be a little bit before I can review that tank, just because I don't have really the time to grind it as much. I'm hoping to get more time for it. Not this coming week, but the week after that, I'm going to England for a week. So any time that I'm going to be playing during that week, including both weekends adjacent to it, I'm not going to be doing. But that's something different. Yeah, but in any case, that's my thoughts on the SU-100. If you like playing a different gun, let me know about it. I want to hear some success stories. I want to hear how other people handle this thing. Tell me what you like about it, what you don't like about it. If you liked what you saw in my video, by all means give it a thumbs up. Let me know. It helps me know what people like and what people don't like. Again, if you liked what you saw, there's other videos on my channel. I encourage you to check those out. Subscribe to my channel if you think you might like what I have to offer. Lots of good stuff on the way. Other contents on the channel already. Definitely worth checking out. But that being said, until next time, you guys take it easy.